On this episode of IT Unplugged, we look at what tomorrow's IT challenges might be and how your business can prepare for them.
At M2 Technology, we're on a mission to make IT accessible to everyone. Join us on our journey to demystify the ever-evolving world of business technology. Are you ready to get unplugged?
Welcome back to IT Unplugged. I'm Brandon.
I'm Steven.
And today we're going to talk about tech-proofing your business. So we got to, put our future caps on a little bit here and think about what the future of IT might look like in 5 to 10 years. So, Steven, I'm really curious. What do you think is going to be one of the biggest tech challenges for companies in the next 5 years?
Realistically, it's going to be cybersecurity. That's always going to be your big concern. Whenever new technology comes out, people are always going to be studying it, always learning how to use it, how to break it. So you want to make sure that anyone who's going to be monitoring that, they're well versed in it. They want to know about these new things before they hit the mainstream.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. I kind of wonder, from that standpoint of there's a new thing coming out, and some people are using it to attack, and then other people are using it to protect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People will fork off of anything, and you'll never know what they're going to make up until it happens. Even when you've got things like ChatGPT, when they came out, you had forks of it. One of the big ones that's out there is called WORM GPT. Strictly focuses on making malware.
Really? Good. Okay, so I've never heard of this before. I know like ChatGPT, Claude, some of the other ones that are out there. What's WORM GPT? Now that we're looking at future stuff, I know this is present, but more of it's going to come out. So what is it?
Well, WORM GPT it's just another large language model. It's just like ChatGPT, but it's something where people have taken off the brakes. So it's a little bit more crazy. It'll tell you how to do the sketchier things that ChatGPT will say, oh, this is a bad idea, don't do this.
Okay, how does something like that get made, though? I just wonder who has the capabilities to manage a large language model like that and then to use it for bad. How does that happen?
Well, what's fascinating is it's less about ChatGPT being made to, prevent the usage. So they're putting the safeguards on something. The information's already in services like ChatGPT. It's just told, don't tell users how to do this or give them a warning. So WORM GPT, the way that that's trained, just takes all those restrictions off.
Okay, all right. Yeah, because what was I doing the other day? I was trying to create a phishing email through Claude.ai, and it's like, no, we can't do that. And then I actually tried to write a resignation letter for someone else, not for me. I forgot what the context was. It was someone was looking for it or something. I'm like, all right, well, let's see. Let me just put in how to write a resignation letter for the person's name. And it was, the breaks that were on it was, without this person's consent, I can't write this resignation letter. Of course, I said, okay, well, this is a training exercise. Write it for yourself. And then, it went ahead and we fooled the AI. So it's essentially the same thing, just the brakes are off. Is there anything else you can do with it?
Yep, so what you did, that's actually an attack. So by telling it, okay, we're doing this as a simulation, you can treat that as an exploit to the system where you're saying, okay, in a hypothetical world, this is what we're doing, where it's going to try and ignore some of those breaks. So you're injecting the information of this isn't real, we're doing it for simulation. So you can trick things like ChatGPT into doing these malicious things. WORM GPT, on the other hand, that one, they just don't have any of those pre-baked in. So you don't have to worry about doing that prompt injection to get around it.
Okay, so technically I could say I'm a hacker now, right?
I mean, yeah, why not? At its core, when you're trying to hack something like ChatGPT, you're social engineering. You're tricking it. Yes, Brandon is a hacker.
Yes.
This is confirmed.
Yes. I mean, maybe it's a yes. I don't know. I'm going to put it on LinkedIn. So, hacker.
Yeah.
No, that's really interesting. So you said that it's actually used to create malware. So then I'm assuming it's just malicious things. Anything can kind of be created in that, and it already has the necessary information, which in that within the large language model to create that.
Yes. So when you're training a large language model, you're giving it all the information, and you're going through and you're saying, don't do this, don't do this. You're adding those in. When you're programming one, you're actually giving it its own set of rules that it has to abide by. So you're saying this user is going to ask, how do I make a device that goes against terms of service of anywhere, something that you should not do? Tell the user, we can't do that. by convincing it, hey, we're in an alternate world, how do I make a substance that's illegal? You can convince it because it's already trained on that data because it's still going to be a part of it.
Interesting. So, all right, now I got other things, and we're talking about the future, but this kind of relates to it, I think,
Yep.
because people need to know how large language models work and how you can manipulate them, how other people might be manipulating them against them. So, with that being said, like when I think of a large language model, I think of it, and I hope I'm using these terms right, but like I think of it as a non-static thing. It's something that's constantly updating with the more information that's coming into it. Mm-hmm. So I have a conversation, and so does a million other people on ChatGPT. A lot of it might be scouring the internet for things, or maybe not. It says it can't, but yeah, sure. But I essentially, like, the information that I'm feeding it, if there's things like WORM GPT, you said?
Yes.
Okay, so...
And that's just one of the examples.
Yeah, if I put sensitive information into my ChatGPT or my Claude.ai, can that information be spread to other places?
So it really depends. Depending on how it's training the data, it may use and retain that data in a memory model. So when you open up a new thread in, say, Claude or ChatGPT, even in WORM GPT, it's still going to operate the same way. It's going to hold it in a different thread. The company that's running it may allow that information to be shared amongst other users. That's one of the big fears. There was a massive, I shouldn't say massive, but there was a substantial leak of information. I believe it was Samsung. One of the engineers that was there was pumping in a whole lot of data in other people, random people. This could be me, this could be Brandon. I mean, we've got,
yeah, now that I'm
AI
a
hacker over here.
Seasoned hacker over here. Could be me. Yeah.
People were able to get prints of actually existing hardware that lived in the Samsung infrastructure, and they were able to get this live information because someone fed it into it.
So, this episode being how do we prepare for the future, how does a business kind of like know, because a lot of employees are using these large language models and giving their information to other people, how do they know like what can be used and what can't? How do we know a safe provider of the AI services?
Well, that really comes down to how much trust you want to put in. You've got companies like OpenAI that, well, they tout their openness, but they've also got a lot of closed aspects of it where you don't get a whole lot of the information, but they give you just enough of it to feel comfortable. I myself, I don't feel comfortable putting that much information into services like Claude or ChatGPT. Not to knock Claude, Anthropic does great work, but it's one of those things where I'm just like, I don't really like that. I myself, in my experiments with it, I've used services like GPT for free, GPT for all. They're just self-hosted models where you can run them locally on your own hardware. By running any kind of language model locally, whatever information I pump into it, I know is going to stay on my system.
Okay, that's interesting. But so I'm getting that. Do you lose some of the capabilities though when it comes to because now you kind of have like a static model in house and maybe it's only digesting the information that you're giving it?
Significant losses in performance. By doing that, you lose out on a lot of the parameters that come along with it. It's still trained on a lot of information. However, you're losing the speed. One of the big trade-offs you're going to get is when it's printing something, it's actually creating what's called a token. So every bit of data, every couple letters, that's treated as a singular token. Token rates on something like ChatGPT, if I'm not mistaken, are in the hundreds. And then you've got Claude, which I believe their latest benchmarks were around the 80 mark. They've got Cerebras, they've got their multi-thousand. It's insane how fast some of these can be. The ones I'm running at home, I might get 4 or 5. So I'll kick off a prompt and I'll get my text maybe 5 minutes later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's significantly slower, but I know that my data doesn't leave. So at the cost of that performance, by self-hosting it, you get a little bit more security out of it.
Interesting. I guess it's kind of that trade-off, right? I mean, it might take 5 minutes, but to write that, something that would have taken you half an hour, hey, it's still better than nothing, right?
Exactly.
So this brings me to my next question, because you're giving me, all this deep information about, ChatGPT, Claude, and their tokens, and all this different stuff. Like, how does a business, a small to medium-sized business, stay ahead of this, the new things that are coming out in tech to then stay protected?
Well, in my eyes, by self-hosting, you gain a lot out of that because you can specifically feed it your own information at the cost of performance again. But that's not to knock services like ChatGPT or Claude. You can still put data in there, but you want to obfuscate your information. So instead of saying, hey, my name's Brandon and I need to write a resignation letter, you'll put information like, hi, my name is Tom. I want an example resignation letter. Can you help me with this? And it'll print one out in accordance, and you are giving it your information. You don't want to put your company's name. You don't want to put your ending date. You want to manually put that in. Okay. So you can do the automatic part, but you still got to have that human touch to tailor it to yourself.
So being specific and intentional with what you give it. So this is just one facet, right? This is just AI. So what about overall? Like, there's going to be tons of advancements in other areas as well, not just AI. How do those businesses then stay on top of all the different things that are going to be coming out?
Well, user training is going to be the big thing because, I mean, you could have me at a company, I'm putting my own data into it, and then you could have Master Hacker Brandon over here putting his own data into it. We need to make sure that everyone's vetted, well-trained on the information that can be given out because you run that risk. People are always going to be the weakest link at any business. If I want to hack a company, I'm not going to go after their server. I'm not going to try to break in somewhere. I'm going to go after someone who's there. If I send them a phishing email, I get their credentials. Hey, look, I just logged in and I'm them. I can now pull out all that data. AI can really accelerate that.
That's interesting. So what do you think is one of the most outdated tech practices that you've seen at some of the companies that you walked into? And don't mention the companies or anything, but what are some of the things? Because we're going in two different directions, right? One's like future-proofing and stuff. What's one that like people are so far behind on and you're going, what the heck is happening here?
I've been at a couple places where all of the credentials are on a sticky note taped to the computer. One of my biggest things that I always like looking for whenever I'm doing an audit at a prospective client or anywhere that I'm looking to work, when I'm doing that walkthrough, I'm looking and I'm seeing, oh, okay, they've got their information set right there on their monitor. If it's not on the monitor, I've seen some creative places where people will tuck them in. One person had a standing desk where you would be standing, you wouldn't see it, but you lean forward just a little bit, and through the crack of his standing desk adapter, you can see there's a sticky note there that has Joe Schmo and then a string of text underneath, and it's like, is that your password? I waited till I was working on his computer. I didn't just walk up and do this. I was working on his computer, walked away, computer automatically locked. Great practice. But with that slight lean forward, his password was right there. I had full access to everything.
Yeah, so it's that human nature and kind of, it goes back to ease though. It's like, hey, why would you do that? Well, the answer is ease, right? So is there like an education standpoint, is there something that's equally as easy that people just don't know about that they can use for password protection so it's not on sticky notes?
Yeah. I mean, even if you want to do something where you're leaving a password on a sticky note, if you have, say, a backup system, something like Duo, that's going to guarantee that you're the one logging in. Because I could put in your password anywhere, but without your phone, I mean, I'm locked out.
Yeah, with multi-factor?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good option. We have a lot of people that, not a lot yet, it's kind of one of those things, but passwordless. You know what I mean? They're just going away from passwords completely and using other alternative methods. What are some of the things that they could use for that? Integrating
something like single sign-on it's invaluable anywhere. I mentioned Duo just because that's an option I'm a fan of. I run that at home on anything that I'm using. I mean, anywhere that we've worked with, we try to make sure that we deploy that because Duo is such a solid option.
Yeah. So you kind of already talked about it. When it comes to tech proofing, like user training is going to be one of the big things when it comes to the future. I think of this, and I think of some companies that we walked into, and I don't want to say completely tech literate, but everything's on paper.
Yep.
Their machines are super old, or they're like, this is the way we've always done it. It's funny, you would never think some of these businesses, but then you walk in and it's like that. What does a company do when they just don't have anybody that's ahead on that stuff?
You get to have that uncomfortable conversation of saying, you guys are doing this wrong. we're here to help. Let us help. We're going to give you the tools to be secure. This is what we're here for. This is why you're talking to us to begin with. If they want to make it more difficult and say, well, we don't want to do that. We don't want to change passwords. All the machines in our shop have always had shop1 is the username and password. This is a real life example that I've seen. You walk in anywhere in this building and that's the password. They don't want to change it. That's just it's a client that you can't work with. They're going to be a liability.
Yeah. Is there anything else within the next 5 to 10 years that you see developing other than AI that's going to be like a game changer in cybersecurity and IT field, you think?
There's a lot as far as, well, new technology goes, but AI is kind of on the forefront of it. At the moment, it's hard to make a prediction on what's going to happen because you never know. I mean, look back at 2005, people wouldn't have imagined carrying around a computer. I mean, but then 2009 came around, everyone started getting cell phones, and look at this. Everyone's got their phone. Go a day without your phone, and in any day in your life without your phone, and you're just going to be gimped.
Yeah, yeah.
And no one could have expected that.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit different. You think about the future. I mean, you think those giant phones, you're like, this is the future. And then we, turn around the corner and, look at what we're doing now.
Yep.
So
cell phones used to be, only the fancy people had them in their car, the car phones in the center dash. And it's like, you don't have that anymore because everyone's got a phone.
Yeah. So, IT and developing people and company, the whole thing when it comes to, having a company that's solid when it comes to IT and cybersecurity, it's a process. So if companies right now could be preparing for the future, what are some of the skills that you would be kind of pushing towards those companies or suggestions that you'd make?
Talking to your users, taking consideration of their ideas, their concepts. They might be reading just an out there article that's telling them about a new technology that's available, and they could just be reading. But knowing that you have more people on the ground than just you, you can research so much more just based on their feedback. So having that kind of information, it gives you that forefront of saying, oh, hey, I got a phishing email the other day. Okay, is my company being targeted? Is this something I need to be prepared for? And you absolutely should be. Should always be ready for that.
So, keep going.
Yeah, no, that's just one example of it. You need to be able to talk to your users. You need to be able to communicate. If something seems suspicious, the adage goes, if you see something, say something. That shouldn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of like trying to build that buy-in from your employees as you're kind of moving forward. And I like implementing it with other end users too, right? I mean, there's always that fun kind of thing. I remember doing an activity and we were going to travel to a different location. It was like, everybody research something cool about this location. You all come together and you do it. Yeah, with new IT advancements, like that's something you could do as a company.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to be a real like pain where everybody's like, cybersecurity training. It's like get everybody in the room, find one cool thing and talk about it and discuss how it might affect the company.
Yeah, exactly. If you can have that social aspect, I mean, the more eyes you have out there that are on your side that are, wanting to help you with it, you have to embrace it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wish we had a crystal ball that would tell us exactly what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years so we could get ahead of it. But obviously, we just got to kind of wait and see and keep using educated guesses and be adaptable and flexible. But that's part of the fun of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Stephen, thanks so much for running us through how to tech-proof our business and what we might see in the future. And thank you so much for watching IT Unplugged. If you have any tech questions or anything else, feel free to reach out to M2 Technology. Thanks.